So for a while now, you guys have been asking me to do a detailed breakdown of the bridge riff of Angel of Death by Slayer, and I planned on giving you guys exactly that today, but along the way of transcribing it, I figured out a few weird things about this riff that I think a lot of us have never noticed before. So in today's lesson, we're going to take a look at how to play this wicked riff, and then also talk about some of the changes that have happened to it along the years. Check it out. Hey there kids, and welcome to a brand new installment of Weekend Wankshop. Here's your best buddy, Uncle Ben. So like I said in the intro, this is one of those riffs that you guys have been asking for me to do a tutorial on for a really long time, and I thought that I had figured this thing out correctly years ago, the main riff and the harmony part that comes in on top of it. But upon really closely listening to the original record and also watching a whole bunch of Kerry King's tutorials on how to actually play this riff, I discovered a few odd things, especially about that harmony section, that have actually changed over the years. Pretty cool stuff. So on today's lesson, what we're going to do first is to take a look at exactly how it's played on the record, the main riff and the harmonies, and then talk a little bit about how this has changed over the years. I'm also going to be drinking this amazing Lagunitas Imperial Pils along the way. But before we get into the fun, let's hear it again at stepdad speed. And as always, there's a full tab for this week's lesson over on my Instagram page, so be sure to follow me over at Ben Eller Guitars, find the tab for this week's lesson, then upload a video of yourself shredding through it along with the hashtag Weekend Wankshop. Okay, first things first, you gotta tune your guitar down a half step to play along with this. So tune your low E string to E flat, then A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, and E flat. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the riff and its harmony exactly as they go on the record. Right hand wise, just use all downstrokes, keep it really simple. You're gonna start off by playing the 7 on the A string and hammer on to 8 and then pull back off to 7. After this, hit the open low E string palm muted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Next, what you're gonna do is to move your first finger down to the 6 on the A string. You're gonna do a hammer on to 7, pull back off to 6, 1 palm muted low E string chug. Then you're going to go down another fret and hit the 5 on the A, hammer to 6, pull back off to 5, an open low E string chug. Then after this, you're going to come down to the 4th fret on the A, hammer to 5, pull back off to 4. So now you should have this. After this, what you're going to do is to return to the starting position of 7 on the A, hammering to 8, pulling back off 7. Then you're going to hit 2 open low E string chugs. Now this is where the creepy spider finger run begins. Now how you're going to play this is to play the 6 on the low E, 7 on the A, 6 on the D, 5 on the D. Then you're going to go to the A string here and play these 3 notes in a row. You're going to play 6, 7, and 8. So now you have this. After this, hit the 7 on the D. So this figure that you played to start with is really important, because after you play the little 3 in a row guy, what you're going to do is to play that exact same figure, only moved up here to fret number 9. So we're going to play 9 on the low E, 10 on the A, 9 on the D, and then we're going to play the 8 on the D. So the entire run will be like this. There's a variety of different fingerings and stuff you could use. I find that I tend to like starting with my middle finger, and I'll go middle, ring, middle, index for those shapes. The next part I like to do 1, 2, 3, and then I'll either do my middle finger or my first finger. Either way, it doesn't really matter much. The nice thing about using your first finger is it puts you closer to that position right there. It seems like Kerry mostly just starts with his first finger on pretty much all of them, so you can make whatever you like to do work. Now, the harmony part that comes in on top of there, this is kind of one of those classic Slayer isms, the non-diatonic fifth harmony. Essentially what this means is that they are not really sticking inside of any particular scale, they're just playing the exact same thing separated a fifth from each other. Now, a fifth can mean a couple of different things. Sometimes it just means playing the exact same riff but 7 frets higher. Another way to think about playing a fifth higher than the other guitar is to think of playing a power chord away. Okay? Power chord's a really easy thing to visualize. So in other words, if this guy's playing this note, you're going to be playing this note. If the other guy's playing this note, you're going to be playing this note. Just think in terms of power chords, because essentially whenever you harmonize with non-diatonic fifths, it just sounds like a bunch of power chords moving around. So here's the weird thing about this harmony part, is that it starts off in the Slayer-ism, the non-diatonic harmonized fifths and stuff, but it kind of changes a little bit. And I wonder who was following who with this, because this is what changes in later years whenever you see Kerry play this riff. Let me explain. So guitar 2 is going to play this figure. It's almost the exact same thing. You're going to play the 8 on the A, 9 on the D, 8 on the G, 7 on the G. So you're going to, just like this, just moved up a fifth. Next you got your 3 in a row connector dude. So your first finger is going to come up and over here to the 8 on the D. We're going to play 3 in a row. We're going to play 8, 9, 10, and then that 9 on the G. So we got... And this is where things get a little different. Because if you'll remember, guitar 1 played this. Remember we talked about this figure and how important it was because it got repeated here? Well, if you'll remember, whenever you played the low part here, it played it here and then the same thing but 3 frets up, right? A minor third, we call it. The harmony part doesn't do that. The harmony part plays, then your connector, and then the little shapy dude here, only 2 frets higher than where it began. So this breaks away from the fifth harmony. This becomes a non-diatonic flat fifth harmony, which is super rancid sounding and cool. But basically what this means, you're going to play the 10 on the A string, the 11 on the D, the 10 on the G, and the 9 on the G. So guitar 2's harmony part there is, and then again, just up a step from where he started. So essentially what this means is that if you were to play both of those parts on one guitar, you'd notice how rancid those intervals sound at the very end because of the changing flat 5 interval. They sound like this. It's like it really falls apart there at the end, right? Again, this is a really weird thing because Slayer typically doesn't like change intervals in the middle of a riff very often, as far as I know. I'm sure there's something else that they do it in. But especially in this time period, they did a lot of just straight, you know, non-diatonic 4s, non-diatonic 5s. And this is really odd because this riff breaks away from that. It starts off in the fifths, ends up in the flat fifths, which is definitely strange. So altogether, if you're playing the low part, you play this. And the high part is going to be exactly the same, except for... Now that right there is a hell of a riff. So let's spend a second here and talk about the weird way that this riff has changed over the years, because if you listen to the record, it kind of sounds like guitar 1 was like, yeah, that little spooky bit should move up 3 frets. But then guitar 2 is like, sha-na-na, move it up a whole step instead. That would be cooler. And they just left it that way anyway. But apparently at some point over the years, Kerry has decided that guitar 1 should also do the whole step move up so that the whole riff is harmonized in straight diatonic 5s. Again, it didn't used to be that way, but if you watch all of those tutorial videos of Kerry playing the riff, he clearly shows himself playing the, you know, the 6, 7, 6, 5, your connector part, and then playing 8, 9, 8, 7 instead of 9, 10, 9, 8 like what is on the record. It's really odd, and I wonder when this changed. I'll show you some evidence. Okay, this is a video that was uploaded around 2007 called Kerry King Playing Angel of Death Riff. It looks like it's from like a backstage lesson series or something like that he did. And in this video here, you can clearly see his dope tribal guitar and tattoos. as well as the positions that he's playing that riff in the low position. Now in this video, instead of being tuned down a half step, he's tuned down 1.5 steps. So the pitches here are different than what we were using on our, down half step guitars. But what we can see with my little mouse clicker here is that right there is the 12th fret. That is the 9th fret. The 7th is where he is right now. There's the 5, there's the 3, and there's the 1 based on the inlays, right? Now, like I said, on the record, the second time through the little creepy part, he should be right here at fret number 9. That's where it appears on the record. It's really easy to see because of these inlays and stuff, but watch, whenever he gets to the part that we're talking about, I'll pause it and you'll clearly see that he is a fret below the inlay. Here it comes. Right there, okay? So he's playing this at the 8th fret, which is kind of odd, again, considering that the record took place right here at the 9th. And here we can clearly see that first finger in between the inlays. That's the 7, that's the 8. By playing that part of the riff here in the 8th position, that puts it a perfect, non-diatonic 5th away from the harmony part, which is playing at fret number 10, like we talked about in the lesson there. So again, this is almost like, after years of playing this, he finally decided, you know what, it would sound cooler if this was all played straight up fifths instead of starting in fifths and then going to flat fifths. So this is a video somebody uploaded called Kerry King Slayer Guitar Extreme number 70. As we can see, Kerry is looking pretty fucking extreme here with his indoor sunglasses and outdoor beard. Now you could say that in the other video it was just a fluke that he played that riff at the 8th position, but in this video you can really clearly tell, and also he's down a half step like on the record. Now again, use the inlays to tell you where you are. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So whenever he plays that little harmony section, or you can use the close-up up here of course, you'll see that once again he puts himself in that 8th position whenever he gets to the second part of the riff. Right there. Again, there's fret 7, he's just past it at fret 8, which puts him in total agreement with the harmony part, keeping it all fifths. Weird, huh? So there you go, guys, an in-depth look at one of the sickest riffs in metal history and how it's changed over the years. I don't want anybody to think that I'm giving this some kind of a critique or saying that they're messing up or anything like that. I think that it's super cool to listen to all these old records and hear the little discrepancies between the guitars, especially in today's day and age when everything is copied and pasted and aligned to the grid to death. There's no humanity left in so much of heavy metal. But if you listen to those old Slayer records and hear how the guys play the riffs a little bit differently than each other, and then hear it sounds in the mix like complete chaos, I think that it's got so much more character than a lot of the stuff that we're hearing today. So yeah, this riff is kind of weird when you look at the way the harmonies work and stuff, but I think that it is better for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for new lessons every single week. You guys can find me on Instagram at Ben Eller Guitars or over on my Facebook fan page at facebook.com/Uncle Ben Eller. Thanks again for watching. Now get away from this dang computer and go do some riffing while I finish up this delicious brew. Less clicking, more picking.